Red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light, green light, red light.
Well, folks, as always, grab yourself a drink, pull up a chair, because there's another episode of the Soul Sessions. Of course, with me today, as always, your host, Soul. But with me today, well, he's a representative of many individual men, but, Duke Degnan, welcome to the show, pal.
Okay, we just went over this all. It's Degnan. And yes, hi. I am Duke Degnan, the pride of Pontypridd, undefeated in New Wave Wrestling, the man who brings opportunity to Overdrive Wrestling. And today I am representing myself, Larry D. Caddy to the stars in Attack Pro Wrestling, and Jeffery Degnan, the general manager of Chaos Pro Wrestling.
Well, see, Degnan, the thing is, it's the names. I'm a Scotsman, right? We know the best of our language half the time, so getting to know other bits of language, it's a challenge for us. But
I'm just saying, as a fellow Celt, a Celt who also appreciates your dress sense, I was ready to compliment you, mate. Put in an effort. I love to see that. The amount of t-shirts and jeans I see at all these shows, you've put a work in, and now you've immediately come against me. A fellow Celt, like a Welsh to a Scot. Come now, make a bit of effort.
Please, my friend, there is no man of disrespect from my regards. You are an established man, and well-dressed man, which I also do appreciate. I do appreciate the good-looking dress. You see too many people wearing wrestling t-shirts or joggies or marketable shitty trainers. It's like, bring some class.
I was going to go into a big little spiel here of just smart, be smart, like my new t-shirt says. But you've triggered me on the shoe thing. Do you understand the trainer's fad? Because I really don't understand the trainer's fad.
I don't know. It's people, they like to, wear the most marketable things, whether it's, the Jordans or these things. They like them. Don't
get wrong, like I put a bit of money into my shoes because I'm, as a wise man once said, spend money on your shoes, money on your bed. If you're not in one, you're in the other. But I've never quite understood the appeal of these bright white trainers that you can't wear them. You just can't, because they're going to get scuffed immediately and lose like 90% of it. I don't understand it.
I don't know, Degnan. It's interesting as well, because I feel like obviously we've seen kind of shoe culture blend into professional wrestling, obviously with the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks have their Jordans. I know CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Triple H have all appeared on like Chicago-based shoe companies things. It's a weird blend of cultures. I mean, for yourself, do you think there's any correlation between shoe collecting culture and wrestling?
So I think wrestling attracts a certain mindset that has the same itch scratched by collectible items, whether that be trainers, whether that be comic books, card games. Like I hesitate to say nerdy culture, but video games is part of it as well. I think without going down certain lines, I think that mindset attracts both, and that's why there's a bit of a Venn diagram going on there. Personally, cards are my thing. I partake in card games from time to time. That's where my overlap comes into this. But
dang, you said the magic words. What are we talking? Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic?
Yu-Gi-Oh back in my college days was Yu-Gi-Oh. Magic a lot more regularly now. I have a group of friends who have a weekly commander night, so I'll pop along to them when I'm not in training, and we'll get some pizza in, play a few rounds of Magic. It's grand. How about yourself?
Pulling back the curtain, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh competitively back in the day during the university days.
What years? Because again, I also did competitive Yu-Gi-Oh in my college days.
So this is probably going from 2019 till 2020.
Literally as I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
As I was getting out of it.
That would have been like what the whole Link era, where everyone was all about the Link.
I was also at university at a similar time. I wanted to keep playing, but between the fact that everything changed drastically and when I was in Sheffield, the scene for it wasn't as nice as it was in Cardiff for me personally. So I was like, this is a good time for me to bow out gracefully.
I think it's, especially with Yu-Gi-Oh, there's so much to like the reading of the cards, the terminologies from fusions to links to XCs to pendulums. There's so many factors in it as well.
And it hasn't slowed down from what I understand.
No, it hasn't. That's why I stopped. I play the video game sometimes. Well, I did love the cartoon as a kid, GX.
We all did. Now you're speaking my language.
Horror, bro. Hey, I played Heroes. Heroes was my go-to.
Oh, good man. I was a Cyber Dragon man myself.
Of course.
I can't believe this. I can't believe I've spent all this time creating this upper class character. You've got me talking about card games in the first 10 minutes. I love it.
I did break down the barriers sometimes, but nonetheless, obviously, we're gonna have to talk about this now. Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself with GX, obviously Jade and Yuki, obviously with the heroes archetypes, and Zane Truesdale with the Cyber Dragons. You've obviously got Cyrus Truesdale with the Roids. So many architects with it, and so many characters with the correlation of their cards. To swing it back to professional wrestling, as that's why people are here. Sadly, they're not here for the card games.
If me and you, man, we'll start a new podcast. It'd be great.
We'll do it. We'll get that trademarked and in the bank. I want you to kind of see, how would you see each maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! GX character having a professional wrestling finish? Do you think if they would translate, how do you think it would be?
Ooh, interesting. See, so now you've got me thinking. So I definitely think we're talking original. We're talking that Yamayugi. Those legs, I think it has to be some kind of super kick. Man had legs for days.
Oh.
Jaden, probably something off the top rope. Some strikes a big hero pose. Maybe just because he was driving around like on the motorbike. I'm thinking 5D's era, definitely a spear.
Oof, good call.
He did a solid uppercut in one episode, if I remember rightly. And after that, I kind of fell out. Like I only vaguely remember the protagonist after that, so I'd struggle a bit on those two.
You can see when the downturn comes in when you're engaged.
Yeah.
I love this character. I love this world. I love what they do here. And then it's like,
I remember enjoying parts of the later seasons, but also I was at college. I was at university. I wasn't really paying attention as much. And
I think that's fair. And I think to connect that to professional wrestling, it shows obviously it's like for a lot of people, not myself. I got into professional wrestling in 2019, so I'm the anomaly here. But a lot of people get into it when they're young, they have a passion for it, and then there's that dying out period. I know from speaking to a few people, a lot of them dying out period in WWE specifically is sort of 2013 to 2014 period. Dana, for yourself, is that the same with you, that kind of period, or were you professional wrestling?
Weirdly, oddly, yes, but not for what I feel the other people's reasons are of. So I was very into around 2006 to 2011 sort of time, about the time I started college, basically. And it wasn't so much a case of, I was less interested, because, I'll get into this probably later, but The Miz was my guy. The Miz was WWE champion at the time. Loved The Miz. I am one of the few people who will go to bat for that title reign of, I actually really enjoyed it. I understand why people don't, but I really enjoyed it. But between starting college, having to commute more to get to college, more work, obviously then trying to find other bits and pieces going on, getting more into my card games, I just found I had less time and something had to give. So I did take a hiatus away from wrestling for those years. Not particularly because I thought it was particularly poorly executed or uninteresting, just something had to give.
No, hey, fair point. And I love what you said about The Miz. I like The Miz as well. I even watched Miz and Mrs.
Oh, you're one of the few. I just couldn't. Even I can bring myself to do that.
I don't know. It was just enjoyable streaming content, and I felt like it made me enjoy The Miz more. Like it just extra avenue and that extra element to who The Miz is.
I saw a few of the clips and they were fun, but it takes a lot more than that to get me to reality TV.
Oh, hey, don't worry. I haven't watched Total Bellas. I still remember that infamous clip of when Rusev, obviously Miro now, was saying like, "Oh, let's put it on," and Sheamus.
Oh no!
You're watching that shit. And I was like, "Oh, Sheamus just turned babyface." God damn.
Yeah, a little bit, right? A little bit.
I think it's fascinating about wrestling and also with the characters in it that they can have spin-offs to them. Obviously, mentioned The Miz and Miss and Mrs. I know Montez Ford and Bianca Belair have had their own little life series on Hulu. Obviously, had the Bellas, Total Bellas, and Total Divas with the Divas. What did you think about that? Some professional wrestlers that can make the jump into the reality era TV series.
So I think The Miz is a special case because obviously, technically, he started in reality TV, so he's always had those transferable skills both ways. In terms of wrestlers' in general, as I'm sure you've heard many times before, wrestling is taking your parts of your personality and turning up to 11. Well, realistically, and this is a little bit my media studies background coming in here as well, that's what reality TV is. No one goes onto these shows and is 100% themselves. They are presenting themselves in a different light, and that is obviously very much what wrestling is. And thus, I do think that is why the transferable skills are there, and that is why there's an interest in the same way there are interest in, say, a sports star. This is almost a step removed.
Hey, fair point. Now, you know what? I'm going to pick your brains in that media background. I'm going to have to make you put it to work. Current state of cinema. I must ask, obviously, with cinema media. I mean, come on, what was that Francis Ford Coppola Megapolis movie that like
I haven't seen it.
See,
I confess I haven't seen it.
See, I think it shows that maybe there's a lack of interest for cinema. Obviously, people like to go and watch the Marvel movies, the superhero movies. They have that connection. You want to keep watching that, but you don't get like the general movie coming out now is like, oh, this is so and so's movie. I want to go see that. It's mostly based on properties and IPs and continuing from there. Do you think the old ways of cinema, from like the golden age of like the Marilyn Manson, the old star cowboy movies of back in the day, do you think we could ever revert back to that area, or are we always going to be moving forward?
So sadly, I think every now and again we'll get a standout. For example, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Bullet Train, two films that weren't necessarily based on properties that I thought were absolute standouts for the year. I would argue, while I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is the better film, Bullet Train was my favorite film of that year. But in terms of how the media landscape is now, I do think it's a dying art to find fully original films that are going to capture the audience's imagination. Not necessarily because they're bad films or because they're poorly done, but I think marketing has changed drastically. Back in the day, we all had TV license. We all sat through 15 minutes of adverts to watch any given show. We were all like, newspapers were a bit more, like print media was a bit more prevalent. We were, advertisements worked. We saw adverts and we go, oh, actually, that looks a bit of all right. Might go see that. In the current media landscape, adverts are, if you don't have any form of ad blocker or pay for a premium service, it's a minute, 15 seconds, whatever, in front of a YouTube video that you desperately are not paying attention to because you want to skip. It's banner ads that you're not paying attention to. It's slop on your Instagram or Facebook or Twitter feeds. People aren't being picked up by advertisements anymore. And thus, the only time you're really being shown movies that you might want to see is when you've gone to the movie. But if you're not doing that because A, it's cost of living crisis going on, it is an expensive trip to the movies, and B, everything's on streaming services, which everyone has at least one of, and thus access to, you're not seeing these adverts. And that's why I don't think companies will ever put the same amount of money they did once upon a time into new original IPs when there is actually quite a safe market of going, we'll put out a 3.5-star film, but we'll slap some Marvel characters on it, or we'll slap a DC character on it, and it'll earn its money back. Yeah. Obviously, the notable exception recently being the second Joker film. I have also not seen this, mainly because I haven't seen the first Joker film. Sounded grand, sounded like, everyone loved it. Everyone heard about it, not my kind of film. What wasn't for me. The second one, ironically, by the sound of things, a bit more for me. I'm a massive musical nerd. That is my ever side thing. I love to go to the theatre. I love a musical. I very much... I can't speak to the quality of the film because I've not watched it. I've only had one person give me a positive review of it, my former housemate. She very much enjoyed it. I can only say that whether it is good or bad, I appreciate that it is such an out there film from what I understand. Like, I think that's a fair description again from everything I've heard of. It is such a departure from what the first film was. It's very experimental. I can only respect that exists in this world, and we still can have those kind of films instead of everything being the playing it safe and by the numbers.
Degnan, I think that's a very fair point. It shows the interesting concept of films that something that may not cater for somebody can cater for everybody else, or it's the pick and mix element. You get one thing for one person, many other things for any other person. So obviously, you mentioned streaming, and to bring it back to professional wrestling, wrestling is going in a very streaming environment now. Obviously, WWE is going to Netflix, especially here in the UK. It will be obviously Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and basically all WWE Network catalog going onto Netflix. And AEW has also announced they'll be going to HBO Max as well, alongside their TV deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. For me as a fan, I hate the whole tribalism with wrestling TV views.
Me and you both, man.
I mean, I just want to watch the shows. I want to have enjoyment of it. I don't want to go online and see people bickering. My show did better than your show. No. It's like, shut up. I don't care.
Do they actually enjoy the wrestling? It feels like they don't.
I feel like they don't even watch. They just put the show on, go do something else. When it's finished, they're like, yeah, I was that extra one person that got us across the line.
I made it. I counted. Like, bugger off.
I mean, obviously, moving to streaming, I'm just happy for that because it's it's more of an accessible way for people to watch and all that. But your thoughts, obviously, on TV viewing figures. Do you think there's still going to be a tribalism around it, or do you think eventually it will die down and people won't care?
So, by virtue of, Netflix doesn't release its streaming numbers. I don't know about HBO Max. I've never actually looked into that because I try to avoid the streaming, like the viewing numbers as well, because I could not care less. Literally could not care less. But by virtue of Netflix doesn't release its numbers, I don't think that aspect of the tribalism can continue anymore. Fingers crossed. Like they'll find something else and they'll go like, oh well, Netflix is a much bigger streaming service because it's global and everyone's got net. I don't care, but I in theory that side of it will go. And just to like briefly talk about the whole view thing, because again, I don't try and read into it, but the numbers the numbers go, oh, numbers are better than your numbers. Those numbers are still good. Like the most, from what I understand, again, like this is nothing I look too deep into, but again, like with my previous media studies, those are numbers that advertisers are happy with. Like that is still a lot of people watching the show that they are getting reliably and consistently. It's not the numbers are bad. It's true they're not as good as the other numbers, but who cares? It's still more people watching wrestling. I thought that's what we all wanted.
I mean, when something like AW Dynamite is still pulling in like 500,000 odd viewers against NXT, which is pulling 600,000, that's over what 1.1 million people watching wrestling in a single night.
Just in America, like that's insane. That's fantastic. That's what we want, right? Like I remember years before AEW, we were all talking about these mythical lapsed fans that we all wanted, and we all wanted more. Hey guys, people are watching wrestling. It's great.
Exactly as well, and that's just what I don't get, how people are so fixated on this and wanting, like, are you really wanting another company to fail for people to lose jobs and then they're whatever? It's fucking tribalism.
It's the worst, man. It's the worst.
I just don't get it, man. It's truly mental and insane of it. But I mean, streaming as well, it's such a great avenue because it allows other companies to obviously be on and get showcased. Like OVW for Triller and Riot Cabaret started their own streaming service as well. I know No Mercy Wrestling have their own sort of on-demand service as well. Do you think, obviously, with this advancement in the streaming age, it will be such a way for new companies or maybe even smaller companies to get that exposure?
I think it's a possibility. Again, like because they have their own ones, there's an element of they are advertising to the people who are already aware of them. But I think it is a win-win situation of once this footage is available, it does mean that when, say, for example, I'm just going to pick a name that some names that I do think will be big names, either in Britain or worldwide over the next few years. But you've got the Leon Cages, your James Ellis's, your Jay Joshua's. These are people who, like, amongst Evers, I don't want to imply I'm not picking Evers people, but these are names that I reckon will get a lot of traction over the next series of years. And then to be able to watch their early matches, because you can go to the No Mercy streaming service, or you can go to the Attack Pro Wrestling YouTube page and become a member, or etc., etc. I do think that is a benefit, and will then get more eyes on other people who are on their shows, because they'll be like, well, who were they wrestling, 5-6 years ago, and what they doing now?
Yeah, Degnan, that's really correct, my friend. Obviously, and you obviously mentioned names associated with specifically one scene in particular, the Welsh scene. I've had a lot of history with the Welsh scene going back to the first season of this show. So many great names and individuals. For yourself, I would love to know what was it like exploring the Welsh scene and then, maybe taking the steps into the squared circle.
So yeah, to give a bit of background on my training, I started training, basically I did university up in Sheffield. I got back from Sheffield. I started my career, my 9 to 5. And I say earlier, I used to be a musical theatre guide. I did so much musical theatre throughout my life. And I'd kind of burnt myself out on it a little bit while I was in Sheffield. So I was looking for something else. And I remembered going to an independent wrestling show, like on a birthday for Dragon Pro. On top of this, earlier on back in WCPW days, I discovered Nixon Newell. I was like, oh, she's Welsh. Not only is she Welsh, she's from not far from where I'm from. Okay, that probably implies there is Welsh wrestling. And obviously there's Welsh wrestling, but it was a moment that clicked in my head. So effectively, I'm at my desk one day, I'm filing my paperwork, yada yada. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna have a quick gander, see what if that Dragon Pro still exists in every school. Oh, they do. Okay, cool. I'll sign up for that. And I go and I do my first beginner class, and I can't move the next day because I get so I have I have a music video background. I went in a bit ill, but it set a rough start. But I keep going, and it's been really interesting because again, I'm surrounded by some fantastic wrestlers, some who've been there for a while. So obviously, I am now with New Wave Wrestling. which is the spiritual successor to Dragon Pro now that Brendan White owns it. But I train under Brendan White, Wild Boar Mike Hitchman, Danny Jones on a week. Like, these are people I train with on a weekly basis. I also pop to New Wave Cardiff from time to time, where I'm training under Mark Andrews and Splits McPins. Again, huge, like, fantastic, great wrestlers with a wealth of experience. I get to train alongside. Also, I'm also going to throw Nico Angelo in as well, who regularly takes trainings. Again, fantastic. I get to train alongside people like Elijah, Leon Cage, James Ellis, like so many amazing wrestlers. Tommy Vrill, I just want to mention Tommy Vrill. Alex Vaughan, who started training around the same time as me. I know he's been mentioned a few times on here, and I can't speak enough praise for Alex Vaughan because I think he's absolutely killer and doesn't get the appreciation he deserves sometimes. But no, I'm surrounded by some of the best talents in Wales, possibly even South England as well. And I get to, like, I'm not trying to say I can do the things they do, because I can't do the things they do, but I bring something separate to what all they do. And I think that is a big part of why wrestling is as great as it is, because it is a variety show. It's a melting pot. And you can have people like Tommy, Leon, Shane Hooker doing the flips. You can have your brawlers like Jay Joshua and Alex Vaughan, and you can have your more character-based stuff like I am, where I'm wrestling in a shirt and a waistcoat and trousers, and like, yeah, I'm just as good as all you guys. I'm undefeated, lads. What are you talking about?
It's the lovely style of it, but I think it highlights the versatility of the Welsh scene. It's a scene that I've had a long history with, and I truly think it's a scene I have such an admiration for, with the names that come out of it and its connectivity. Yeah, I'm a Scotsman and I love that, but I'll say I love Welsh. I love the Welsh scene. I think it is truly a honest to spectacular scene. But obviously, you mentioned some names there, and I want to pick through some of them. Obviously, you mentioned one, Nixon Newell, obviously former Tegan Knox in WWE. I do want to get your thoughts, mate, on her recent departure from WWE. I know she was. It's so bizarre, I have to say. Like, I remember first hearing about her was obviously through the showcase they had on the network, where she had that injury in the Mae Young Classic, and such the build to her coming back. And then obviously she got released the first time and then brought back, and then wasn't really used, and then now obviously departed again. Just your thoughts on her WWE run, and what do you think as a fan went wrong?
So I don't want to speculate too much, because at the end of the day, the only people who can know what happened behind closed doors basically is herself and the WWE. I don't want to go, she, like, they didn't use her because this, that, or whatever, because I don't know, and speculate on that I think it'd just be wrong, because I can't possibly know. I personally think it's a shame. I think she's a fantastic talent. Again, she is there is a world where if I don't see that Nixon Newell on WCPW, like doing matches with Brie Priestley and the likes, there's a world where Duke Degnan doesn't exist as a wrestler. A world where that isn't the case as well, but I do think it's a bit of a shame she's gone. I do think she was underutilized. I do think, if I'm really thinking of anything, I think there may have just been a case of there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of really extremely good talent there. There's a lot of, obviously they've had there in terms of management as well. There's been some turbulence over the past couple of years, and I just think it is a case of right place, wrong time. And I'm just excited to see what she does next. I'm sure she'll succeed whatever she does. She's actually going to be with Attack Pro Wrestling for Winter Slam in December, so I'm delighted that she'll be there for that. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't want to speculate too much.
Yeah, no, fair play, my friend. And viewers, if you're watching, definitely get over to the Attack page and get to that show, because I think it is going to be an absolute banger of a show.
Tickets will sell out. I can just guarantee tickets will. They do regularly. We've got a show tomorrow. In fact, pull up back the curtains a little bit on when this is filmed. We've got our Halloween-based show tomorrow, and that's sold out. I want to say early October.
Yeah, see, this shows the absolute love for the Welsh scene and great stars within it. I do obviously want to get your wee thoughts on it. I remember I had Donovan Dijak on a week after his WWE departure, and we chatted about, him being drawn up and there's being no plans for him when he was immediately brought to the main roster. Do you think it's maybe obviously great amount of talent, and if they're great and people want to see them, that's a fair point. But do you think sometimes continuing with long-term stories like the Bloodline or like Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan could be a detriment because you don't allow other people that showcase?
Yes and no. I think obviously long-term storytelling is something the fans have been wanting for a long time. I personally enjoy a long-term story. I do think that it's a weird line that pro wrestling has to draw, because obviously it is a weekly show. It is a live weekly show. The fans there are paying to see, they're traveling around as well, so it's not the same fans each time. And basically, the fans, when they're paying to come to a SmackDown show, they want to see something to do with it. Back when the Bloodline was the big thing, and still is, I guess, to this extent, but they want to see the Bloodline. They ideally want to see Roman Reigns come out and point to the sky and yell, "Acknowledge me," and they can. So you can't not have that on the show. They want to, but also they are trying to get over new stars, and it's a balancing act that I don't envy anyone in any situation like that of how they do, because you do want to get over your new stuff, you do want to introduce your new characters so you can keep going forward, but you also don't want the fans in the building to go home disappointed, if you will.
Fair point. If people want to pay and see it, then you have that audience that you have to deliver and cater towards, because they want to see that.
Exactly.
You got to deliver what they want. Then obviously there's a double-edged sword of when every story does need an ending, but when is it the right time to pull that ending without affecting business? It's such a balancing act, and it's obviously just when to make the right call. But hey, if selling tickets, maybe the call's not right now.
Yeah,
I mean, well, obviously going up to the Welsh scene in depth, it's, as I said before, it's fantastic. Obviously with Attack, Chaos, New Wave, No Mercy, all these great companies as well, and kind of all with their own maybe bit of an identity as well. Like they have their own uniqueness to them, and that's fascinating. Obviously, Mark Andrews leading Attack, Wildborn and Morgan Webster leading Chaos. No Mercy.
Jeffrey Degnan leading Chaos. Come on.
Sorry. I got to.
We have a whole thing. The amount of people I see who go, yeah, no, Flash and War is still the boss. No, Jeffrey's the boss. Calm down.
Maybe we should then talk about your brother, your Jeffrey, Mr. Jeffrey. Obviously, he can't be with us. He's delegating things in the office, as you mentioned.
Very busy right now.
He is a busy man, but let's maybe educate some viewers about how Jeffrey came into power and really is running the ship there.
So simply put, Jeffrey has been a member of the booking committee for Pro Wrestling Chaos for quite some time, and we had there was some incidents going on. Brendan White and Flash Morgan Webster were constantly butting heads. Severance was constantly butting heads with both Flash and Hitch, Wildball, Mike Hitchman. And it came to a point that realistically, we as the booking committee decided that they cannot have the people running the shows also getting physically involved. It's just not appropriate. It's just not right. You can't be laying hands on those people who are technically your employees. So they say for a time, but it is an undisclosed amount of time. They have taken the booking duties off Flash and Wildball, Mike Hitchman in terms of, just so they can be freed up to pursue their physical activities. And Jeffrey Degnan is running the show. Briefly for a time, Raven Leverkusen was also co-GM, but she has decided to gracefully step back and return to full-time competition. And as Duke Degnan, I'm personally happy to see it because I think he's a very good wrestler. I'm delighted to see her back in the ring now that she is fully recovered from her injury. But Jeffrey is solely running that show now.
We will pay respect to Jeffrey and his leadership skills, because we really should. I do not need to know, Duke. Has Jeffrey said anything about maybe his plans for Chaos? Has he got some things up his tree? Little tricks. I mean, come on!
You're the inside scoop now. You come to me for the inside scoop. So. I can merely say that Jeffrey has full intentions to bring control to Chaos, and that he will find a champion that is a worthy representative of the company now that we have the undisputed King of Chaos. Perhaps that remains Harrison Barron, perhaps it doesn't. I'm sure he will get this all sorted in a timely matter.
Chaos Control, who is he? Shadow the Hedgehog? I mean, I digress. Hey, look.
Say don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. We don't want to do it.
Keanu Reeves, all right? He's going to be pulling out 2005 PS2 game covers, which has got some crazy stuff in it. So
it was a great game, though, wasn't it? It was a great game.
Beautiful, brings a tear to my eye. Professionalism. But yes, we will respect Jeffrey and his booking committees, and I'm sure whenever he has time, we'll maybe have a chat about what's going on with Chaos. But digress. We'll let him work. He's a busy man. We got to let him work. But obviously, No Mercy Wrestling as well. Bevan, I've had on the show twice before, and to see the evolution of that company and what they provide. Obviously, the Combat Legacy Championship, first held by James Ellis, and the No Mercy Wrestling Championship, which I believe was obviously inaugural one by Jay Joshua. So many elements there have done so well, and they've announced obviously their 2025 schedule. Dude, your mate, my friend, your thoughts on No Mercy Wrestling's impact within the Welsh scene?
I think No Mercy Wrestling has had a profound effect. They also provide the ring for plenty of shows in the South wrestling scene, which is invaluable in and of itself. But I think, particularly during the pandemic, as I'm sure you've had others come on, many wrestlers found a haven in No Mercy Wrestling, going to their open ring sessions, training with them. And I think that in of itself has kept a lot of names coming back. They are a big, they are regularly present at shows. They're always very helpful, very supportive. I've been part of one No Mercy show for their Rumble back in, I want to say, it was either April or May, off the top of my head. I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I believe it was around that time. It's been a busy year. I was also involved in the VCW, who obviously partnered with No Mercy now, and I was part of the Iron Cobra tournament this year. Not quite as successfully as I'd like to be. It turns out stepping away from the playbook and pandering to the fans was a terrible idea. Who would have thought of that? Not me, tell you what. Well, not with my time, it turns out. But no, I think I look forward to seeing what No Mercy has coming forward. Particularly now, it is being run by the very prestigious James Ellis, good friend of mine. He is the brilliance, and he will make those future shows brilliant, I'm sure.
He really is. He is really a brilliant lad. And, James has appeared on this show twice before, and to see what he's done as well, it's truly heartwarming because he is obviously the brilliance.
Honestly, I could not praise that man enough.
Truly as well, and I think it shocks me with how good he is. Obviously, he has the brilliance, but just how good he is kind of like, wow, I can't believe, how is he not in the States conquering there and doing so many great things?
Give it time. There are names who I am confident will eventually make it across the stateside and make an impact, and James Ellis is on that list. He very much you can tell the kind of wrestling he enjoys, and he embodies that. But he has such a good mind for this. To see him thinking about putting stuff together, watching him backstage, he honestly can't speak highly enough of that man.
No, true. I mean, obviously inaugural Combat Legacy champion. He's done stuff in Carnage, Riot Cabaret,
inaugural New Wave Wrestling champion as well.
Oh my God, yes, that lovely blue belt as well. We're passing it down to Elijah.
Mine soon, mate. Mine soon.
Fine, you're soon. Hey, we'll get you on, and we'll make sure you get a good fee for that appearance.
Oh, fantastic!
I'll be making it's a guarantee there. But I would love to know, my friend. Let's throw a hypothetical. Say you had 8 plane tickets for eight Welsh wrestlers to go over and wrestle the GCW Collective during Mania weekend next year. So you get to give to 8 Welsh wrestlers an opportunity to go wrestle in the States during this whole Mania weekend extravaganza. Which 8 would you pick?
Do I get to put myself on this list, or am I having to
You're flying it. You're flying it.
I'm flying the plane. We're buggered, mate. I can't fly. Right, 8 names. So James Ellis is on that list. I think that's made it more than apparent. I think it has to be Leon Cage and Shane Hooker. Throw Tommy Villain as well. Those 4, I think, are a grand start. Alex Vaughn, again, I will speak that man's praises until the end of days. Jay Joshua, Nico Angelo, and Wild Boar Mike Hitchman. Right, I think there are other names I'd throw on that list. Never names who would potentially are better, but I think those are 8 I could send across. Wild Boar Mike Hitchman was the elder statesman for it. I also just need him to look after them because quite a young group in there, but him and Nico, I think, are the more established ones there, and I think they'd have a bloody great showing. But I think those other 6, getting that kind of exposure, at this point in their career, I think would be amazing for them. Again, off the top of my head, and I feel bad because there's so many. I take an entire jumbo jet, mate. I take us all over there.
Oh, there'll be some angry DMs for you when.
No, please no.
You'll survive. Just
don't be put on the spot like this.
Pin them towards me. Say it was me. I was a bad influence. I was putting you under the pressure. Yeah, it's that Scottish charm. I try my best. But I feel like you can't mention Welsh wrestling in particular without 3 individuals, particularly Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster, and Dani Luna. Subculture.
Yes.
Obviously, they've appeared on this show before, but I feel like internationally, these 3 individuals are so well known. Obviously, Mark and Flash, NXT UK Tag Team Champions, Impact Tag Team Champions, and they won the Unlimited Wrestling in Germany recently, Tag Team Champions. They've gone everywhere and they've done everything. Obviously, recent return to Progress. And then you look at Dani, 2-time TNA Knockout Tag Team Champion. She was in the Women's Ultimate X match at Thrill Hard to Kill or Thrill to Kill for TNA at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Just so much these three individuals have done. Obviously, even for Welsh wrestling, but UK wrestling in general. My friend, what are your thoughts on when do you think subcultures will be laying in the history books for Welsh and British wrestling? Where do you think they'll be?
I think they're already in the history books because, again, they have all three of them, both individually and as a unit, have done, and obviously various versions of the unit have done so much. Dani Luna, to call her one of the best women's wrestlers, I think is selling her short. I think she is one of the best wrestlers this country has produced. Mark Andrews, Flash Morgan Webster are such, having worked with them both in various companies and various means, to watch how their minds work and to watch the matches they put together is incredible. And they are all three of them are so supportive of the scene as well. I've seen them all take time out of their day to support wrestlers coming up when realistically they don't need to at this point in their careers. They can just they are busy enough as it is. Like Dani Luna is constantly flying to and from TNA tapings, and yet she'll still, when she can, take time out to do the women's classes at New Wave Wrestling and to interact with some of the younger wrestlers and to help them learn. Mark Andrews is running New Wave Cardiff at the moment. I've seen him the day after traveling from Europe, getting back, I'm telling me he had a rough flight back, but he's still there on the Monday teaching a intermediates and beginners class to help people come up. I've unfortunately not trained with Flash Morgan Webster nearly as much because he takes classes at New Wave West Midlands, but I've seen him on Chaos shows and he is constantly busy, constantly moving, but also still taking time out to give people feedback and to interact with them. I think they are a credit not only to this country and this industry, but just to themselves. And I think any history book that doesn't include them for Welsh wrestling is just incorrect.
Yeah, they're up there with obviously like Wild Boar, Adrian Street, the individuals that have done so much for that country and its wrestling scene. And I know obviously with New Wave Academy, obviously the training there, because didn't Mercedes Moné rock up at New Wave?
Yeah, I unfortunately was busy. I was at my card game night that night. I was kicking myself.
Whoa! I mean,
literally just take my phone like. Oh.
I mean, when you must have like heard the stories of, because it wasn't it like Mark and Split and Leon Cage there as well?
Leon Cage was there, yeah.
And for yourself, when did you hear about all this? And then like just seeing Mercedes Moné, someone who's done so much at New Wave.
The first I heard about it was when I checked Instagram and saw the post. I was like, for bloody hell's sake!
Oh
yeah, no. But no, they Mark and Splits kept that very much under wraps. At least I wasn't told about it. But it's wild. Like sometimes that just happens. So and again, that could be anywhere. Like we've had seminars where man like Derice has shown up just randomly at New Wave Newport. People can't do Charlie Sterling is a regular. Just comes down to Newport to train on a Wednesday when Wild Boar is taking it. You just get to see these big names just pop in because, quite frankly, we have a very good training facility both in Newport and in Cardiff, and we have some very good trainers. Brendan White has assembled a fantastic team in Newport, and I could say the same for Mark as well in Cardiff. So no, it's wild. Some of the people do just every now and then like, oh, they're there. That's cool. Yep, cool.
It's the fun of it. It's the culture there as well. You know, I've only ever been down to I've been to Wales twice for Clash of the Castle, the inaugural event at the Principality, and then obviously when AEW Dynamite came over at the Ultima Arena, I went down there and got to experience it. And I'd never been to that Ultima Arena before, but I see like a lot of people have a connection with it, especially with wrestling, because don't WWE do a lot of live events there, if I'm correct?
Yeah, so it's obviously now called the Ultimate Arena. I still know it as the CIA Cardiff International Arena because that's what I grew up with it at. So when you said the Ultimate, like, oh right, yes. But no, yeah, WWE runs live events there. When we had NXT Takeover Cardiff, it was there. I was there for that night to watch Subculture win the NXT Tag Team titles. Great little venue. I unfortunately was not there for the AEW show. I had a ticket, and then I was reminded by my family that we were seeing Blood Brothers the same night with them. It's like, yes, I've seen Blood Brothers 15 times, but we did book this first. So I had to sell off my ticket. And I was like, so I've had a bit of fun with it. Like post a little picture of me in the field. Like, I heard there's a show on, guys. Where is everyone?
You cheeky bugger. Well,
yeah.
well,
I got to go to Wembley, so yeah, I can't complain too much.
All in. Your thoughts on the show this year?
Oh, I loved it. Had great seats. So I make a bit of a weekend. I've actually got family in London, so I tend to make a bit of a weekend because I've bought into both All In so far. They've been in London, so I'll go up on the Friday or the Saturday, taking a musical on Saturday night, and then go to All In on Sunday. And this past year as well, Larry had to come along and go work the Attack show that we had that we did alongside North and Hustle, which was a lot of fun. But no, I very much enjoyed the show. Being there for that, we all had our predictions going in. I didn't predict how it was going to end. I was so certain that we were seeing Daniel Bryan's retirement match. I'm now glad I didn't see that live because Jesus Christ, I'd been crying in my seats. But murdered the man, Jesus. But no, I had a whale of a time at that show, and no, being there surrounded by friends was also very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely shitting it because I went to Greensboro for Sting's retirement match, and then saw Drew lose to CM Punk, costing him at Glasgow. So I was like, I do not want to be fucking free and see Bryan retire this year. So I was like the jinx, the monkey paw. I'm just happy.
I'm glad we got the vision we did. I was so convinced of the fantasy booking I'd come up with in my head. I'm glad it didn't go that way because also the stories we've had since then for all the people involved, better than I could have booked, but I was so convinced.
I think a lot of people were nervous that whole night. There was literally like a lot of people were like, oh, please, just win. There's Iconium and just tap him out, please, for the love of God. But I think as well with AW All In, obviously the second event here in the UK, but there was a big reward for, I think, British wrestling fans with Nigel Mcguiness returning in the Casino Gauntlet. I said to my mates, like, this would be a rewarding show, like with Bryan winning, but if we got to see Nigel do something, that's the extra rewarding on it. But for his legacy with Ring of Honor, and then the Legacy of McGuinness documentary, or when he wrapped up his career, your thoughts on Nigel getting that moment in Wembley Stadium to return to British fans?
I mean, to say it was special is underselling it. I was sat there. I had Ethan Thomas, formerly on the show, sat next to me. He was wearing a Nigel McGuinness shirt, and he was jumping out of his seat, like just pure coincidence. But no, I think it was. Obviously, I can't speak for the man, but having met him only twice, once at an Attack show, once at a seminar he took for New Wave Wrestling, but to me at least, like to see him after all he's done, for us not to think he was ever going to be stepping back foot in a ring, to watch him come out and watch that, I potentially say the biggest reaction of the night. Like, as much as I love the main event, I think it's fair to say Nigel came out and that place came unglued.
Oh, yeah. And when him and Zack Sabre stared off and everyone was chatting British wrestling.
Delightful.
I mean, mate, Forbidden Door next year.
I'll be there. I intend to be there.
Well, that's the question, though. We know this is happening. It was announced in Wembley Stadium. Well, technically, it was announced on a barricade like 2 days.
Yeah, a bit awkward, wasn't
it? Oh, my God, spoilers. Yay! And then all the hotels were going up in prices, and I was like, shit, this again.
Yeah, I'm quite fortunate. I've got family in London.
Oh, you lucky bugger.
Yeah.
But where do we hell it? The O2 or Wembley Arena?
I mean, my head says Wembley Arena just for the marketing, just so they can say we've held shows in Wembley area for 4 years, like 3 or 4 years running. So my head says Wembley Arena, but I think the O2 is very possible.
Yeah, I've never been to the O2, but I hear that it's a lovely venue. Obviously, I know Money in the Bank was held there when it came to the UK. Do you think like the atmosphere of the O2 will add to the event?
So things I've not actually been to the O2 even myself, so I can't really speak for the atmosphere. Again, I think it'll be a different atmosphere to the stadium too, just because the pure nature of that. But I think get enough rowdy British fans, get all European fans, or just common wrestling fans in general. I think we'll just have a good old time regardless.
Absolutely, indeed, mate. And it's that funness of the British wrestling fans, and obviously the community as well is so tight knit. And we've seen that recently because I know obviously Split McPins, he's entered retirement, if I'm correct.
Yes. Honestly, very sad to hear personally, but
yeah. But I what I love was just seeing the outpour of support in the comments of just people highlighting the moments they've had with him and the support. You mentioned obviously you've had interaction with Split from learning from him. Just your thoughts on Split McPins and what he's done for wrestling, and now his new role as a learner and a teacher to the next generation.
So Split McPins, I've known him for a few years now. He was actually one of my first matches at New Wave Wrestling, was a 6-man tag involving him, and to see him backstage, like, he is one of the hardest workers at shows. He is there for the ring setup. He is on it. He's setting things up. He's constantly moving, constantly interacting with people. He is honestly, he's incredible. And I think, like, I am heartbroken that we're not going to see him wrestle again, because I do think that he is, even for how much support he received and like the outpour from the scene, I think he is undervalued in terms of the wrestler. The Welsh and South England scene know he's amazing, but he should be known much wider than that. He is, again, a great mind for wrestling, both tag team and singles. I've learned so much from him personally. I have treasured the interactions that we have had both in and out of the ring. I'm saying all this like he's not going to. He's still going to be a part of the scene. I don't think anyone would let him just walk off into the night. He will still be, a big part of the scene, and I'm sure we'll find some uses for him. But the fact he's now teaching at Cardiff, and it is quite frankly invaluable, because he has such a mind for just the business. Like, his technical wrestling work is outstanding. His understanding of lucha work is second to none. The fact he gets such, it's always spoken about how hard it is to get a reaction when you're under a mask, so you can't use it, and yet he nails it every single time. You go to any attack show that he was part of, and speak of it, one of my former housemate, before she moved out, I took her to an attack show, and she will still to this day say, like, her highlight of that show was Splits McPins versus James Ellis in a ladder match. Like, he's an absolutely incredible guy, and if he sees it, mate, you're great. You already know I think that of you, but you're great.
Yeah, I've always heard about the name, and just seeing his work ethic and how much love, I was, hopefully one day I could get him on the show and tell him personally, but Split, great guy, and I think he's going to be a true asset to the Welsh scene in any capacity that he does. Truly will be a great addition indeed. Obviously, well, moving outside of the Welsh scene, obviously, you have the Irish with obviously OTT, Scotland with ICW, Community Pro, Attitude Pro, so many others. But obviously, you focus really on the English scene. Obviously, a lot of people know that obviously with like Progress and Rev Pro, with the likes of obviously Will Ospreay, Alex Windsor, obviously Mina Shirakawa holds their women's championship. Then Luke Jacobs, Michael Oku. Just such a capitalization with Progress and Rev Pro. Obviously, they hold shows here. Obviously, Rev Pro hold like the Copper Box and some other venues, and Progress hold with the Electric Ballroom. Do you think that there is a capacity we can maybe see Progress and Rev Pro more regularly hold shows in the States? I know obviously Progress is done with the Collective, but do you think maybe we could see more British companies with the likes of Progress and Rev Pro do US shows?
I mean, I'd never say never. Obviously, again, because I'm not involved with either of those shows, and I don't necessarily know the people who are involved with those shows as well as I do Evers, I can't speak to what their plans are or like if they have intentions. But I never say never is how I view that case of if there is a opportunity for them to either partner with another company or even just to get venues over there and do more stuff, that's entirely possible. And I think it would benefit the wrestlers greatly, because the more people see them wrestle, the more their stock value goes up. And also part of getting over there would be to sort out visas, and once you've done that once, it becomes an easier process. And I think that is what I think I've been told by others that is part of the thing of what potentially stops some British wrestlers getting over to America for some of these large shows is, well, yes, they can hire an amazing British or Irish or German yada yada wrestler, or they can have a wrestler who is potentially as good, maybe on par in America, that they don't have to sort out a visa for. But no, I think it's very possible we could see more of these shows going over there. But I wouldn't want to speculate, because again, I'm not necessarily involved or in a position to say yes or no on that one.
Okay, no, of course, absolutely, mate. I fully understand, and I think as well that benefit to wrestlers is generally a good thing, no matter what company they work for or what element is. And obviously, we've kind of seen people be interested with that, obviously, with this whole WWE ID system that's going on, where basically it's like a thing where people get like I don't know, it's weird. It's a new thing. It's like a development thing or like a scouting program.
It's interesting. I don't understand the details fully myself either. Like,
Yeah.
it does seem to be that they will financially support you through your development on the understanding of they get first dibs on you, basically, which is entirely fair. Like, I'm kind of viewing it as the same way for example, when you're working an office job and they go, we will put you through this professional qualification, but you stick with us.
It's interesting. Obviously, there's still many more answers to it. Obviously, some names have been announced over the last few days.
Yeah, I think there's 4 names announced yesterday. Was that correct?
Yeah, like Jack Cartwheel, Zyda Steele have been announced for obviously this collaboration program. Obviously, details are always still limited. We don't know how this is obviously going to work, but some people have said, yay, if people get paid and they get recognition, obviously a good fast track to WWE, that's an absolute benefit. On the other hand, people have said, well, if this is an exclusivity thing, does that mean there's more of a monopolization over wrestling from the WWE's aspect? And it's a borderline thing. Obviously, details are still very hazy. It's early days, but your thoughts on it? Do you think obviously it's a wait and see thing? Do you think obviously there has to be some guidelines with this? What's your thoughts?
So I think it's a wait and see thing. I do think that both those statements can be true in a vacuum. Like, I don't think anything about this is 100% good and 100% bad. And maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, and maybe if I'm, someone will tell me as such. But something can be good for the wrestlers in the sense of it is getting new wrestlers support, it is getting them funding, it is getting an eye on them. That's great for the wrestler. It can also be bad for wrestling companies because, well, hang on, now there's more loops to jump through to get to use this wrestler, and thus they're less inclined, these things can be both true in a vacuum, in the same sense of obviously NXT UK was cited by some as the death of independent British wrestling, and I'm not here to say either side of that. The fact that British independent wrestling is going as strong as it is now is potentially a sign that it survived, regardless of whether it was or wasn't. But that was particularly for the pandemic years, that was good for the wrestlers because they were still drawing a wage, they were still being supported. As far as and again, I might be speaking out my backside here, so do not take what I'm saying as gospel. I just think we do need to wait and see on this idea and see what restrictions and what comes out of it. And hey, if it all turns out that these are the next stars and it is a way to funnel, it is a new developmental for their developmental brand, because obviously NXT is now a bit more. I feel like it's fair to say it's a bit more than just a developmental show at this point. So absolutely, it's a feeding system.
Really well, because obviously with WWE ID basically being independent development, I feel like NXT really evolves out of that. Is NXT like an upper development, or now is it really its own third brand? I mean,
I with how I'm interpreting things at this point, I would maybe consider it equivalent to a finishing school. So you've studied for however many years, and now here is your stint in NXT to prove that you were a worthwhile investment to us, and to get those last bits of tidying up, you're getting taught how to work the hard cam and such.
Do you think that's a good place to keep NXT as that, because it gives it an identity, or do you think maybe hang on, let's maybe do something like introduce it with the draft and have true shakeups of people going from maybe Raw to NXT or SmackDown to NXT, or do you think maybe keep it as identity?
I think it can be both. Again, I think it can be this is where your development brand is, and I think they actually were hitting the nail on the head a little bit more recently when they were having some people drafted back, like Baron Corbin being sent back down to NXT. Apollo Crews, I believe, was also sent back there. Mandy Rose, prime example of it, can also be a way to give people who are on the main roster who are maybe starting to not flounder but stutter out a little bit a chance to refresh, while also getting to work with people who are on the way up and thus make them better. I've something I've been told many times, and I think I do full-heartedly agree with. You don't get better by working with someone at your level. You get better by working with someone better than you, or even by someone not as good as you. Because I'm accounting for those differences. If you're working with someone better than you, you learn from them. If you're working with someone who's not as good as you, you're bringing them up. And I think these are skills that can be. I think perhaps it's a bit late to be doing that on NXT, particularly because it is on national TV. But I do think it is a valid point for that to be, while also including it in the draft, and then you can have your big surprises of someone is drafted from NXT to the main roster, and that is like that they call up, that's their big moment, and someone is sent drafted to NXT, and that is okay. We're refreshing this card, but also we get to see them interact with all these young people. Firstly, like maybe this is me getting to my fancy booking brain, and I've just kind of come up with this off the dome. I'd love to see a Randy Orton interact more regularly with an NXT. Obviously, he was there a couple of weeks ago for their debut on USA. But I would love to see a story where Randy Orton is on NXT. I was like, okay, these people effectively rehashing something he was starting to do years ago now, where it was these young up and comers are coming for my spot, but I still want that spot.
Oh, the old spot. I think that would be a very interesting story there. And you mentioned obviously it's people want to get to the next level. So I need to obviously know, Degnan, would you like to play a little game?
Oh, I'd love to play a little game. Let's go. What we got here?
Okay, so I'm going to say some Welsh wrestlers, and you have to put them into either going to WWE, AEW, or TNA, and you have to put an opponent for them. So I'm going to mention some names. All right?
I'm going to throw it out that I don't watch nearly enough TNA. There's a lot of wrestling at the moment, and something has to give.
Shall we just go with WWE and AEW so you don't explode?
Just so
we'll
I can
go with that. All right. So first name is Brendan White.
Brendan White. Ooh. And that my brain has gone completely blank, but I think I'd like to see Brendan in WWE, and I would love to see him. Well, you know what? Let's throw Brendan against Roman Reigns. He had this small interaction with him a few years ago on a SmackDown. Let's run that back.
All right, okay, that'd be quite interesting. Tilly Rose.
Again, let's send her to WWE and let's put her against B Priestley.
Blair Davenport versus Tilly Rose.
Exactly, yes. No, I know they've had some interactions in the past while Tilly Rose was beginning to train, so I'd love to see that come full circle.
The evolution of the student. Quite a storyline there. Aluna.
You know what? Let's put Aluna on. Oh. Let's put Aluna on AEW because I want to see her wrestle Jamie Hayter. I want to see how that works out.
Oh god, it's gonna be quite a battle there, but I'll take it nonetheless. And Bevan.
We allowed to curse on this?
Yes, of course.
I was about to say the bastard son. I was like, oh, actually, am I allowed to curse?
You can, my friend.
That little Jack Russell that is Bevan. Where am I sending him? You know what? Just because it'd be very interesting, like the visual of it. Send him to AEW. Let him fight John Silver. I think two little bald Jack Terriers going at each other would be very entertaining to me.
Oh, okay. I'll take that. I think that'd be quite fun and entertaining. Leon Cage.
I mean, it's got to be AEW, really, hasn't it? And I'd love to see. So we'll chuck Shane in with him, and we'll chuck them against the Young Bucks and like watch them just bounce around each other like ping pong balls.
Oh, the Rising Tides versus the Young Bucks. I'll take that. That'd be very entertaining to see indeed. James Ellis.
It's James Ellis is WWE. I'd love to see him WWE, and I would love to see him work Orton. Like him versus Orton, I think would be incredible.
If that match ever gets announced, I'm definitely hitting James in the DMs. Can you get me front row seats? Just so I can see that.
You and everyone else, mate. You and everyone else.
Oh, you and everyone else. Oh, absolutely.
So I think I've just said that, and I've then realized James could also, if he ended up on AEW, him versus Jarrett would be hilarious.
Oh, that would be fucking hilarious.
Yeah. No, yeah. Actually, you know, can I say James and like as much as I'd want James and Orton, James and Jarrett.
You now have to tell him that you've now booked them against Jeff Jarrett now, and I wonder how
I'm sure he's okay with that, you know.
All right. And Wellborn, Mike Hitchman.
Wellborn, where are we sending Hitch? You know what? I think, particularly with the current character, like the very like cerebral, like I think sending Hitch to AEW and having him work something quick with Moxley, I think would be very entertaining.
Oh, that's a hard hitting style there. I mean, I will definitely take that nonetheless. And Kenny Mantra.
Kenny, where are we sending Kenny? I think we're definitely sending Kenny to AEW. we'll give him. I think to Kessler. I think that'd be an interesting matchup.
Oh, You're really throwing them to the sharks there. With
yeah. Look, I'm not going to give people small names. Come on, I like these guys.
Oh, hey, very fair play. This one's tour Subculture. That's Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews.
Yeah. Oh, at the tag team. Okay. Why am I sending Subculture? You know, just because I obviously saw the outpour support from them quite recently. We'll send them to SmackDown. We'll have them do something with the multi-stage machine guns.
Blast in the past from the Impact days. I mean, I will take that. And final one here, yourself.
Are we sending me out?
Yeah.
I mean, I've alluded to a few times, but I would be absolutely delighted. While I love AEW, I actually watch far more AEW than I do WWE these days. It's probably my go-to. But if I could work something with The Miz, like, I'd die a happy man.
Well, he's currently kidnapped by the White.
He might be dead. He might just be dead. It looked like death, that video that they did. Yeah, but
who knows? He's came back from worse. You know,
I guess he was killed by zombies that one time.
Yeah, he's a survivor. He is a survivor. He survived the real world. He survived zombies. He can survive Dexter Loomis with a neck grab. He'll be fine there. I love, obviously, with wrestling, the culture and obviously merch as well. So fun as well. Obviously, there's plenty here behind me. Obviously, I love a good display. Of course. Get the shirt, folks. It'll be in
Big Cartel link on my Instagram. Find it.
You'll find. I'll make sure they find it. But obviously with replicas, replica championship belts because they're so beautiful and
gorgeous. Yeah,
people want to have them and idolize themselves. Featuring with some of these belts as well. For yourself, my friend, is there a particular wrestling championship within the UK scene? I know obviously you want the new wave, you want other things that.
No, I don't want the new wave. I'm going to have the new wave. Let's make this clear here. So I am undefeated in official matches at New Wave Wrestling, and I will be competing in the New Wave Scramble at the end of the year, and I will be your next New Wave champion.
Well, if you're the next New Wave champion, you better be coming back on the show with that belt. That's all.
Yeah, we'll get in the DMs at that point, sure.
We'll be making sure. But obviously, so many beautiful belts. Is there a particular championship right now that you look at and think is just pure, beautiful etiquette? It's just a beautiful looking championship?
So there was one, the one I idolized longest while I was being in Brit Rest is unfortunately being retired, ironically, by Jeffrey earlier this year. But I loved the All Wales belt from the Dragon Pro days. It was a very nice design. Not to say like the other designs, like current designs, aren't gorgeous, but that was the one I went. That's pretty swish. But if I had to say one that is currently being actively defended, the Undisputed King of Chaos is a very fine belt.
All right, hey, a beauty, and I'm sure a lot of people right now will be going right onto Google Images and being like,
as they should. I mean, it's if you want to have a look at it, it's all over Harrison Bennett's Instagram and Facebook and such. So.
The idealization, my friend, the idealization. I think that just speaks to it. And obviously, Dana, we spoke a lot here and we spoke a lot of great about stuff. But to wrap it up here, I want to take it back to your love of musicals because we have a musical that's being adapted to film coming out very soon. Obviously, is Wicked.
Yes, Wicked. Yes.
In 2 parts. It's coming out in 2 parts. It's
part 1 and part 2. Come on. I generally didn't know that. That's why.
So I need to ask: do you think the cutoff point of part 1 will be Defying Gravity?
Or Defying Gravity? Yeah, of course it is. It's where the interval comes in. Yeah, no, it's 100% Defying Gravity.
But they might hold it off so people have that tagline for the second part.
Nah, it's Defying Gravity. Like as much as they could, like they could move it to being as the time effectively the time scale happens. It's going to be Defying Gravity.
Watch this. They'll say now we're not going to do it in 2 parts. It's been too controversial. We're just going to release the whole film at once.
I think it's like I can vaguely understand it because obviously it is as a theater. When you go to see it in the theater, there's an interval there. It is about 2.5 hours before, like without the interval. So I can vaguely understand it, but no, don't do this. I mean, particularly because as much as I love Wicked, it's a very fun show. The second half is not nearly as good as the first half.
Oh, hey, fair dues. I mean. What I think is interesting, obviously, about musicals, they have got such a good translation to media as well. And, I remember when I went down for All In the first year, I was seeing things I recognized, like the Japanese animation Death Note was made into a musical.
Yes, love it.
Is it good?
Oh, so right. So bit of background here. It's not actually a fully fledged musical yet. Quotation marks, fingers crossed. So years and years and years ago, I want to say back in about 2010 or 2012, it was like the music was written as a test piece, if you will, a sort of like, here is what we want to do. So there's a full soundtrack that's been on YouTube for years, but it was never really picked up and financed. And then year before last, yes, it was having a tour where it is just a constant performance of that music, again, potentially shopping around the idea of a Death Note musical. And I've been listening to that soundtrack for years, to the point where now I've found out that someone has uploaded it all to Spotify as podcasts to get around. Because I don't fully understand how Spotify works, but sometimes you can't upload songs there. So if I've gotten it taken down because someone's seen this and gone, well, that's not meant to be there. But the full soundtrack is on Spotify. It's all on YouTube. Some great songs in it. I was slightly disappointed because I was there and I sent a picture to some friends like, oh, I'd be really interested in seeing this. Oh, it's literally going away next week and I have not got the funds to really be like, the time to go, I could come up and do this. But no, absolutely love the Death Note musical.
No, I'm definitely gonna be looking at it now because I really wished I went when I was down there at All In, but
again, it won't be the same cast recording, but there is a cast recording on YouTube. Some of the songs I can particularly recommend. Playing His Game is great. Borrowed Time is an outstanding belter. The Game Begins, great. Like, you've outed all my nerdy stuff in this song, and I love you for it.
I do my best, my friend. But obviously we've seen like Back to the Future, Only Fools and Horses being added into musicals and all that. So I want to know, is there a particular wrestling storyline you think could transition to the world of musical theater?
I think, and this may be like the easy answer because it is just such a great story, but I think it is. I think it's just the story of Shawn Michaels. Just commentary. I was going to say just Shawn Michaels on the Undertaker, but I think it is just the story of Shawn Michaels from the Rockers to HBK to losing his smile to the Redemption. Like, that is your first arc, is losing his smile. And obviously, like, you fantasize all this a bit and you cut out some bits and pieces and yada yada. And then the return, the forming, like the war, and then the reunion with Triple H, and then like your last go home stretch is the stuff with the Undertaker. But I think the story of Shawn Michaels, not that I know how to write a musical, but if I like gun to my head had to, I think that's where I'd probably make a start.
I'd take it. Would you just call it the Heartbreak Kid, the musical, or something like that, or would you call it the Heartbreak Musical?
I think I would steal directly from his autobiography and call it Heartbreak and Triumph.
Andrew Lloyd Webber, eat your heart out. This is it. This is the real musicals we're getting here right now. Fucking Cats or something.
Cats is not my scene, but in the same way as I appreciate movies that try something different, I can appreciate Cats for what it is.
It is what it is, brother.
It is what it is, brother.
Degnan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the
It's been an absolute delight.
My pleasure is all mine, my friend. But obviously, as we wrap up, crazy enough, it's nearly the end of the year. 2024. Here coming by. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm getting older and the knees are going more. But I would love to ask for yourself, and obviously I know you've got your brothers and they're doing their own little thing. I know Jeffrey's busy with his own booking. But for yourself, my friend, what are some things you want to achieve in 2025?
Truth be told, I am obviously, made allusions to it earlier, but if I can hold some championship gold, that'd always be delightful. But I have the opinion of, as long as I'm doing something somewhere, I'm happy. Whether that be me, Larry, Jeffrey, or various other Degnans who I may not have mentioned previously because they just aren't involved in wrestling at the moment. But I want to get to more shows. I want to help at more shows. I want to be part of more shows. That's kind of my niche in the scene, is that I want to just be as many places as I can, whether that just be as a helper or as part of the show, just doing whatever is needed to be done.
Well, mate, I think truly in 2025, the Welsh scene will be the dominance of Degnan. I mean,
I'm stealing that.
Give me the royalties, please. That's all.
No t-shirts then.
Well, Folks, if you've loved what you've heard of the boy here, I will be including a link to Degnan's Instagram down below. You can click it, follow him. He's obviously got that amazing shirt that's available. You can see it on his Instagram page. Get yourself a lovely shirt. It'll look very stylish. Don't wear anything else. Be stylish and cool. That's what you need to be.
To quote my shirt, dress smart. Be smarter.
Exactly, folks. Simple words to live by. Well, finish up your drinks, put your chairs away, everyone. And thank you, as always, for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, my friend.
Now I'm out there human too. Gonna live like animals do. No more laws and no more rules. No more body, no more fools. No more